Okay, everybody, I think we're ready to get started. How is everyone? Oh no, I see an empty seat. Okay, we're going to start with a channel review today in this first Hangout for WeCreateEdu. Today we are visiting Phrenotopia, and this is Fedor's channel. And the idea is we want to have a feel for what are the first impressions when you first reach this channel. When you visit the channel, are people getting the right impression according to what Fedor would like people to see? And then we'll also address some questions of what is doing well on the channel, what isn't doing so well on the channel. Are there some low-hanging fruit that Fedor can address that might make his channel more successful? And I'm going to be leading this Hangout, but please, everybody participate as much as you can. This is really a group effort. People will really benefit from your experience, especially because every channel is different. And you all really have important information to to share. I know it may not feel that way sometimes. Like we're all so isolated working on our own channel, but there are a lot of things we have in common. And so please participate by speaking up or writing in the chat. And I want to remind everyone that we are recording this, and I will be uploading it up to the WeCreateEdu channel. I'll do a little bit of light editing, but for the most part, this is what the video will look like. So if you have any reservations about appearing on camera, you can just turn your camera off and I won't show you. I'd also like it if you would include a link to your channel in the chat, and that way I can include that in the description of the video. So if people want to follow up and see more of your channel, they can do that after they watch your video. Okay, everybody, let's start talking about Fedor's channel. It's called Phrenotopia, and let me ask you first for your first impressions. I'm just going to start here by looking at a summary of his channel, kind of. Okay. So here you can see the channel art, the channel bug, and the last 3 videos that Fedor has presented on his channel. And I'd love to hear what are some first impressions. When you first come to the channel, what do you think it's about? How does it make you feel? Oh, you know, there's so many moving parts here. You have no idea. I found out today that Meet doesn't record, so I had to find another way to record. But anyway, yes, please. Even, it's so nice to hear from you. What's your first impression when you look at the channel art, the channel bug, and these last 3 thumbnails from Phrenotopia?
Well, I don't have any really substantive feedback other than I think it looks really good. I like the channel art.
I know, isn't it beautiful? Yeah.
And I think it does a pretty good job of giving, it gives a general impression, and especially with your little tags at the bottom about what the channel is about, and that is, as somebody who has a channel that gives no indication whatsoever what our channel is about, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I think these tags are brilliant. Really short. Willie agrees. He says, yes, I really like the tags. And the channel art is just so gorgeous. Now, Fedor, would you say, you may have done this channel art a while ago, does the channel art and do the tags still reflect your vision for the channel? Like, is this what you want people to take away, that you cover these main 3 topics?
Yeah, well, actually, the current channel art is pretty new.
Okay.
And your channel trailer.
Yeah. Oh, channel trailer.
Oh, I was just saying that when I look at it on when I just look at it on the desktop or on the mobile, I think that channel trailer looks really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
The thumbnail you have for the channel trailer works really well with it all matches very nicely. So I actually think the look of the channel is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm also really happy with it as it turned out. I mean, it can always be improved, so I'm open to suggestions. But this is actually, like half a year ago, I did a little of a reboot of my channel because it's been kind of, wavering or meandering the past few years, been on and off with it. But I decided to the channel also to 3 months ago that I changed the channel name from Phrenotopia to Phrenotopia, and my concept is actually, and I'm working on some videos to make it more clear that okay, this is my realm of imagination. Let's kind of, because I had all these disparate topics that I was really interested in. So I started out with I started out with kind of silly movie psychoanalysis, which I kind of moved away from, and then I did some alternate history, which got really popular and boosted my channel. And then I started, digging into my own personal expertise and interests, and that would be alien biology. So I looked back and said, all of this is kind of speculative science, and this is a kind of a fantasy realm where we can just unleash our imagination and think. Alternatives, life on other planets, alternative history. So it's kind of a realm of imagination, but still grounded in science. Which kind of the whole concept.
Yes, thank you, Fedor. Can I ask you, you had a particular artist make your channel art. Did they make a channel bug for you at the same time? Because that style for your bug looks quite different than the channel art. Yes, and I'm sorry also, we have like a leaf blower coming by, so from time to time I might cut out because of that, but I think they're almost done. It looks to my eyes that your bug, the little round, logo for your channel, it looks like quite a different style than your channel art. And so I was wondering if that was an older bug or
Yeah, that's true. That's a relic from the Phrenotopia area.
I see. Yeah. So I was wondering if you would consider having the same artist make you a bug so it matches. Because I just, I'm so in love with your channel art. It's like, it's the most beautiful thing. And yeah, I think it doesn't quite look like it goes together. Like I definitely get it now when you said that, you were thinking about movies. Yeah. But yeah, that would be awesome if you could get them so they could match. How about anyone else? Does anyone else have any ideas of, for a bug? Like what sort of little symbol might represent the channel? Willie agrees. It would be great if the logo matched. Oh, Stephanie asks, can you explain what a bug is? So on YouTube, and I think this is terminology from like branding as well, when you have like a simplified logo that you might put onto your channel art, or I'm sorry, like to represent your channel, or on your business card, or like the top of your stationery, things like that. That's a bug. And so here, the bug for Phrenotopia is this little round symbol where there's a starburst, and then I think it's like a tangled brain, and then some movie stuff. Avatar, yeah. So right, you could use the word avatar as well. So does anyone have some ideas of like what might Fedor use instead of the current bug? So I would say one thing to keep in mind for the bug is that it definitely doesn't have to represent your whole channel, but maybe it's just something that is clean and recognizable, like even when it's really small. And it would be great if you could use like the same color scheme in some way as your channel art, just so it looks like it all goes together, But I totally understand. This is like, it's a major endeavor to come up with, like your branding, like what little thing do you want to represent your channel? And so, it might just be the planet, on the left, just because that would be a quick thing that you'd recognize as soon as you went to the channel.
Thinking, I've got this atom symbol item here on the speculative science, and there's this DNA thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe those three and the planet can be combined into a new kind of logo.
Right. And here's where the artist that you worked with might really come in handy, because it's so hard when you're not an artist to to come up with something that's simple but beautiful, but this artist is clearly very talented. So yeah, maybe just
I'm so impressed.
I know.
Whoa, this is beautiful.
Wow.
I
Wow.
couldn't have done it myself. So I was really happy. I'm willing to put on a link to him because I'm so happy with that.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, if all of us could, send some work this person's way, because they are just they really have something. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide, but we're going to start. Yes.
Just check on the chat.
Yeah.
A bunch of suggestions were made for what.
All right, so let's see here. Some of the ideas for the logo include, let me see, build of the logos in the tags. And Mark suggests that, yeah, maybe, and Fedor thought that was a good idea, somehow incorporate these icons. The planet could work, but Jade mentions the planet might be a bit generic. But Jonathan suggests maybe base the logo on a planet with something in it, representing the alternative history style. Maybe film around the planet, suggests Willie. And Jade agrees. So maybe film instead of the rings, which is sort of getting close to what you used to have. And people are coming full circle back to the same logo that you already have. But yeah, I would suggest definitely work with your artist. Share the ideas, and it sounds like they're really good at interpreting it and bringing those ideas to life. I want to mention about your thumbnails, and that is that you mentioned that you loved the Canubis style of thumbnails, and yeah, we all love those. Those are awesome, where they're colorful and there's a really recognizable font. And so I love that in your thumbnails you have that same font, because you start to feel like this is the Phrenotopic font, right? And I noticed that you use them in your videos as well. So that's fantastic that you're really consistent there. Now, there were some mentions about the thumbnails in the chat early on. Does anyone want to talk about some suggestions of ways to be maybe more consistent about the thumbnails, ways to make you feel like, oh, I definitely recognize this as a Phrenotopia video? Willie suggests make yourself default templates like he does with the borders. He has 5 or 6 different versions of the same template. So that's a great idea, so you don't have to start from scratch every single time.
The video about the 2016 U.S. election has a big yellow banner kind of thing in the bottom part of the thumbnail with your text over it, which makes the text stick out quite a bit, and it kind of made me think of Canubis or like the way SciShow does the banner with the text over it. But a lot of the other videos, the text is just sort of over the image in the background, and in some of those, like the very first one, or the one that's called The Deeper Meaning of Star Wars, because it's a photo with a lot going on, especially like
Okay, there are a couple more suggestions from the chat. One was maybe different colors representing different subjects. Since you have speculative science or alien biology or alternate history, that might be a way to help people recognize what the video is about. Although my personal idea is that there's so much on YouTube that people are seeing videos from everywhere. The most important thing is that they recognize that it's coming from your channel. To that end, Jade suggests maybe have your logo on the thumbnail. That's a nice idea. Just in the corner or somewhere where people recognize, oh, this is a Phrenotopia video. Let's move on. We'd like to be able to help Fedor get more views, like more of giving people what they really want. That's the message we keep getting from YouTube, is that the way to be successful on YouTube is find out what your audience wants and give that to them. And so I had a quick look to see what were the most popular videos on Fedor's channel. Oh, Willie suggests use a poll on your community tab, and that's great. That's worked really well for us. A lot of the other WeCreateEdu people have been using that to good effect. So here, if we look at the top videos, the videos that you've done super well, that have done really well on your channel, I see a lot of videos about aliens. Do you get positive comments about those, Fedor? Oh, we may have lost Fedor's mic again. Oh, no, here you are. Oh, okay. So, no, not at all. So I noticed that your top performing videos are these videos about aliens and, alien biology and that type of thing. Can I ask you about your feedback that you're getting from your viewers? Are they very enthusiastic about these topics?
It's not really my comfort zone.
Ah.
evolutionary biology thing. That is actually my comfort zone.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's that works out really well because yeah, what if it was about, American history and then that's not really your thing. That's really great to hear because if you're so comfortable with the subject and I'm sure that comes across as well. Willie suggests evolution of George Washington. That's a great signal and sometimes that's the hardest thing when you're first starting out with your channel. There's so much noise and like sometimes you'll put a video out and it does well and then the next video on a similar subject doesn't do well. But here it looks like you have a very strong signal for exobiology and evolutionary biology, and since that's what you're really good at, that's great. I wanted to point out that your lowest performing videos, and some of this has to do with if they're newer or older, people don't respond a lot to the videos about real life. So they're here to see the fantasy aliens, and this is something, it's weird because I feel like we're getting this message from YouTube a lot, like do live streams. But from what I can tell, that hasn't really resonated with your audience. Tell me what your experience has been like doing that.
It's really also my comfort zone.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really good to know about yourself also. Yeah, like I know my husband Michael is similar. Like he's not excited about appearing on camera, although, he's trying to do it more, but it's like it's just so much more comfortable to like, I don't know, do a voiceover or yeah.
So I guess I'm not really that engaged with personalities about animations.
Oh, see, I don't think that's true at all, but maybe for your audience, like they want this thing. How about anyone else in the chat? What's your response to live streaming versus the traditional animated videos you see on Fedor's channel? Jade suggests live stream are more for building a tighter community than getting views. That's really interesting. So I guess that's something to keep in mind. Like, are you trying to build a community of people who will support you in some way or become evangelists for your channel, that sort of thing? And we've really dropped the ball in that respect. We don't talk directly to our audience at all. But some of you in the chat, you may have a different experience. Have you had a good experience, like reaching out and actually talking with your viewers? Okay, Avon agrees. We've done live streams for milestones, and they've made our community stronger, but they're not a source of views. So yeah, that's maybe that's something to keep in mind going forward. Okay, Willie agrees. Yeah. Okay, well that's really good to know going forward. Especially just in terms of tempering your expectations, I think. If you're doing a live stream, it's not to boost the channel exactly, but just to reconnect, like to seal those relationships with your viewers, but don't expect it to bring in a ton of subscribers or whatever. You mentioned in your survey that views were your top concern, trying to get more views. And I'd love to hear from the chat and, anyone listening, what have you done? And what would you suggest the first thing Fedor should do to try and get more views on his channel? It's the big mystery. We all want to know. Well, Fedor, what have you tried? How about, yeah, Cheryl says, I wish I had the answer.
I've tried actually, but yes, some years ago I really tried doing regular uploads, like every month at least, and
Yeah.
that is, and shortly after where I started doing that, all of a sudden my Viking videos started spiking. So I think at least the algorithm back then
Yes.
picked up on my regularity. So
Right.
The last half of 2019, last year, I kind of tried doing the same thing, but it's just really too hard, to do it too regularly enough. But that's the one thing I'm trying once in a while. And also keep on refreshing, changing my thumbnails once in a while. I go back to them and looking, okay, how can I improve these? Pop up. So I'm trying that also. And,
Very cool. Yeah. So have you noticed when you change your thumbnail, does it affect your click-through rate at all? Have you been able to notice a difference there?
I haven't really studied it.
Okay.
I think it does.
Okay, so I would suggest, and this is something I need to tell myself this advice as well, is that when your click-through rate is very low for a video and you think it has promise, that might be a time to pick that video and change the thumbnail, change the title. Yes, Jade agrees, thumbnails definitely affect this click-through rate. Aside from that initial burst of views when you first drop a video, now you're dependent more on search. And so we need to make sure the video is searchable, like the title needs to be searchable. And so you can do a little research there. And then the thumbnail also, when people get these search results, the thumbnail will encourage them or discourage them from clicking on it. Stephanie mentions it looks like when you have questions in your title, that pulls more than the general theme of the video. And we've heard that from YouTube as well, that questions work really well. Something very short generally works well than a longer title. Any other suggestions from the chat? Willie mentions, if you ask me, the most important thing is the topic of the video themselves. So that's something. When you mentioned in your survey, when you're choosing topics, it's really based on interest. And so is it something that you're interested in like right now, like today, or are you making a list of videos that in general you're interested in that at some point you'd like to make? Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, so maybe what you can do is, pick the topics that you have a sustaining interest in. So, you're not so dependent upon, oh, today I really feel like it. And then I would say the other thing that we've had some success with is just doing a little SEO research, search engine optimization research. And that is, check to make sure people are actually looking for this thing. Like, for instance, the word exobiology, people will search for that word. So maybe when it's relevant, include that in your title. You can also check Google Trends. That's less relevant, probably. Another one is autofill on YouTube. When you start typing in your topic, see what pops up, because that's populated based on what people are actually searching for. So if you can include some of those terms, that helps. But of course, only if it's actually relevant for your video. But that can help give you some ideas of meeting the audience halfway. Yeah. Right. I think so. I think everything is like a little bit helpful. Like, I don't think there's any one thing that's like, that's going to be the winning strategy, but it's just sort of due diligence, like, do these 10 things, and in general they sort of pay off. That's been my experience. Yeah.
I think that's what happened with my alien biology.
Ah.
People, started discovering them.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't anything I did to,
It was found by the algorithm. Yeah, I know. Like, sometimes it just lifts it up all of a sudden. You're like, I did nothing. But it. Yeah. No, I think that's what we all have to hope for. As educational YouTubers, we have to keep putting out the content, and eventually the search engine finds us. Any other mentions that people would like to suggest to Fedor about ways to improve views or ways to improve, finding more traffic or anything like that?
The chat mentioned collabs.
Collabs, yes.
That's always an important possibility. I know that's hard with an animated channel because it takes time, and that's something that we struggle with. Is how much lead time you need and how long it takes to figure out, and can't just pop into somebody else's video, and so there's a lot of complications to doing a collab in certain kinds of styles. But certainly, if you may well have done some in the past, I don't know. With the kind of breadth of topics you have, I could imagine pairing with somebody else with history. They do a straight history channel, a straight history topic, and you do the alternate history topic for it.
Yes, we recently had a collab with the science version that went fine.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how complicated you want to make it?
And of course, if you find a topic, the group collabs that we do with WCE, they're not going to bring. I don't want to raise expectations. They're not going to bring in thousands of new views, but they are a way of getting exposed to a different audience, which is a way of getting more subscribers potentially, and also, at least we hope that sometimes it also instructs the algorithm that you're connected to these groups, and that people who watch one of these videos, one of these creators might like yours.
And I would caution that I think a lot of times the benefit of collaborations, it's not immediately obvious, and it may not appear on that actual video. But I think, as Avon was mentioning, it may instruct the algorithm about your network and, what are you likely to be recommended next to. And so in general, it tends to lift your channel up. I don't think that's 100% of the time, but yeah, I think it's not going to hurt your channel, and it might help your channel.
I would also say, because I've been spending a lot of time thinking about and doing collabs,
yes.
that it really depends on the choices you make doing a specific collab. Like, I've had some that were very successful and helped me a lot, and others that were not quite as successful and it didn't have that same sort of obvious effect like Kim was talking about. So yeah, I think it's very careful choosing of the topic and the way it's covered by the two channels and who the two channels are. I think Willie and Jade were agreeing in the chat that it matters how similar you are to the other channel. I'm not sure if Willie and Jade, if you think that more similar channels are better or not so good collaborators. I've found that reaching really far outside of my discipline has been the most successful route.
Oh, that's so interesting. So Jade says the more similar, the better. We've been a little bit reluctant to go too far outside, like outside of, say, educational videos, just because we're concerned that we would attract people who wouldn't really be interested in our typical content. And so I think there's a question of, like, are you getting high quality, like really engaged subscribers, or are you going to get someone who's a little bit interested just because you're a friend of someone they like?
Yeah, no, I didn't mean, I haven't tried any outside of the education sphere yet.
Okay, yeah.
I certainly like to. So I meant cross-discipline, like I would say that my channel is very specifically environmental science related, but my most successful collaborations have been with Kristen from Step Back History and Willie from Canubis.
Oh, that's
Scientists.
Fascinating. That's great. Okay, cool.
Also, when I was on 12 Town, that was also successful, and that's a music channel. So,
right. Yeah, that's true. There's no telling. Like people have varied interests. Absolutely. Yeah. And Willie agrees. Do cross-discipline collabs. Mark agrees. Reaching outside of the discipline is very fun. I wanted to mention one other thing that was in the chat from Cheryl, and that is that you can, it's almost like collaborating with yourself, like your old self. Make sure you include cards and end screens so you connect, your, like, that's one of the things the thing that recommends our video more than anything else is another one of our videos. And so I think you can be your best collaborator if you find like really clever ways to suggest a video that's related, that kind of thing. That can really drive extra traffic. I have just one last thing to talk about. You mentioned, Fedor, in your survey that you identified narration as something that you wanted to work on. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, maybe it's just in my head, but for me it's very hard to, when I write the script, I think, well, yeah, this is a good script. I'm really happy with the script. Then I have to sit down and start recording it.
Yes.
And then, I listen back to it and I think, oh my God, why do I have such a thick accent? Why am I saying, why am I not pronouncing this right?
Oh my goodness.
And then I have to go back and redo it. So.
Okay, well, first,
some people just sit down and start talking.
Yeah.
I have to really, focus. And I think also because I have to read the script, then I have to, think about how I narrate, and then I have to, be careful that I don't, keep my accent down because I have a natural accent because English is not my native language. So I have all these processes going on in my brain at the same time.
Yes, so it feels like a stumbling block a bit. I see. Well, first, let me just tell you, I don't think anyone is going to object to the accent because it's wonderful. Honestly, like only a serious jerk, like with problems, personal problems, would object to the accent because it's really lovely. Honestly. Oh no. No, that's terrible. Okay. So, no. Oh, that's awful. I don't understand people. Okay, Willie says accents add personality. Mark reminds us that everyone has an accent. So, but doing practice read-throughs are a good idea. Jonathan mentions he has narration issues also, and Willie says also he stumbles over his own words. I think we've all got that issue. We all have like things we don't like about our own voice. For me, I have to clean up a lot of mouth noise, especially. So I'm a scientist, and I say the word molecular all the time, and it produces more mouth noise. It's like every single time. Molecular. It's awful. But yes. Yes. No. Yes. Yes, no, I know those pickup lines. Here's a nice suggestion from Cheryl. She says she tries to spend a lot of time working on writing in the way she speaks, so the words flow more smoothly. I think this is something a lot of us who are academics struggle with initially. Is that when you write for a paper, or when you write academically, there's a certain style. And it's completely different when you write for narration. And so I think that's something that we really all need to focus on or need to think about, is that you have two different styles of writing. There's one for when you're writing for publication or emails or any of those things. And then there's a totally different way to write when you want to include enough time to breathe. You want to include enough time for what you say to like hit. You need to include like just a few moments of silence almost, just some filler words until you go on and talk about something else. It really just takes practice. Jonathan mentions he goes off script fairly often. And so that's another thing to think about, is that you do have freedom here. You can write something for yourself, and then once you start to deliver it, you can say it in a more natural way. Mark suggests reading out loud to another person to see if it feels natural. Avon, did you have something? Yeah.
Partly curiosity of everybody else. How do you all
improvisation? So that's not my strong suit, because then I just start wandering off all directions. So I have to keep sticking to my script. But sometimes I recorded it and then I put it into Audacity, remove all the smacking sounds and other mouth sounds, and try to adjust the volume and maybe the tone and the bassiness.
Okay, I want to read to you Jonathan's technique, because this sounds ideal. He records the whole script twice in one session so he can edit out errors, then procrastinates for 3 days, since I hate editing my audio. This is what we should all be doing. No, actually, that's fantastic. And I think, so it sounds like most of us have to do this. Like, we'll do a few takes if it's tricky, until you're happy with the read. I find often that I have to start recording a few takes in the beginning, and then I hit my stride, and then I can keep going through the rest of the script. But my method is very similar to Mark and Avon's, that, I cut out things that don't work and then put it together so it sounds approximately right. I call that a radio edit. Like, when it doesn't sound like I take out all the unnatural pauses. Everyone, I want to move us along because we actually have been doing our channel review for quite a long time. But this was really wonderful to get a look inside, a peek at Fedor's channel, Phrenotopia. And I'd love to see, what changes come and, how you want to evolve your channel. So how about we move on to the other topic for discussion, and that is how to make money off of YouTube. So I'm going to just switch our presentation here. There's just a little bit of ideas that I came up with, and I'd love to hear more about what you are all thinking about how to earn money other than YouTube. We don't want to put all of our eggs into one basket, basically. That's pretty dangerous. So what are some other ways that you can make money other than from YouTube? So what I've identified is a few major categories, and one is viewer support, including pledges from Patreon, PayPal, and Kickstarter. Sales, if you're selling something like some merchandise, ebooks, or licensing your footage, or, if you do music production, things like that. And then also you might offer some kind of service. We're all educators, and so you might tutor people, you might have a hangout where you charge for tutoring, or, from your experience as a YouTuber, you now are an experienced host. You might offer to host for money or write scripts or edit videos for somebody else. Are there any of these that you want to dive into, or any other ideas that you would like to share about how to make money outside of YouTube?
It might go under viewer support, or it might be its own thing, but branching out to other platforms. Someone in the Slack mentioned TikTok, and I know Kristen has been finding some success on Twitch, and I've also now branched out onto Twitch, and I think Patrick might also do Twitch. So yeah, that's something I guess we should add to the list.
Very cool. Okay, and when you think about these, could you tell us a little bit about how that generates income for you?
Yeah, so I have not delved into TikTok. It scares me a little. But as far as Twitch, so Twitch works kind of like how YouTube monetization works, except that there are ads that run before Twitch streams and things, but the income that a Twitch creator is getting is a lot from subscriptions. So you can follow on Twitch, which is kind of like a YouTube subscription where you just get notifications when the streamer goes live. But if you subscribe to them, that's a paid subscription. It opens up a few perks in the chat, like special emotes and stuff like that for the subscriber. But having subscribers means that the Twitch streamer gets a kickback from Twitch. And then there's also bits. So bits are basically a way for audience members to tip the creator or the streamer. So yeah, the audience members would pay in order to have a cache of bits, and then they can throw a few bits your way while you're streaming.
Very cool. Has anyone else experimented with this platform? Let's see, I'm just going to check the chat real quick. Okay, Willie suggests don't expect much from merch sales. I would agree. Okay, please. That's so interesting because it sounds like that kind of traditional business where people YouTube reach out to businesses and say use YouTube to market your business, and so it's coming at it from completely the opposite way that we are mostly thinking about it. So Ben, how did you get started with this? What was your first project where you were selling a kit?
Reminds me of another YouTuber, the 8-bit guy, who you undoubtedly know. I love your channel, by the way, Ben. I really love your videos. I learned so much. But the 8-bit guy, he also started making this, kind of new Commodore kind of retro computer kits. He's working on that, and he's making these retro games, of old systems, and he's selling a lot of those. And it's for me personally, I'm not making money off YouTube yet, ever. But I think that would be much more attractive than to sell merch or get sponsors or more ads. So this is very inspiring.
I know I learned from Melissa Maribel, who has a chemistry channel, that she recently came out with a set of flashcards, and they're so beautiful and they're so high quality, and it's just it's like a gorgeous little product that I want it. And I don't need to study this anymore. But yeah, if you can come up with something that is just nicer or more convenient, something that will help your viewers. Yeah. Even you mentioned something about you'd like to do posters, but the time it would take to do nice versions is a barrier. Has anyone considered working with an artist to maybe commission some artwork that would tie in with your channel? Has anyone experimented with that sort of thing?
Part of the problem for someone who's not really trying to make a living off of YouTube, not really trying to so investing money into it at the startup is hard. So I think that's sort of an ongoing problem. With us, it's that we have the art, but the posters that we make that are the background of our videos.
Right.
Two things that I have problems with: a lot of them need credits for all of the images, because that's the terms of the license that we use. So figuring out how to put those credits, or just even putting those credits onto the poster, is a certain amount of work. And then also just gonna do them, what service do we do, and go for print on demand. They're often not all that nice, and do them ahead of time, then that's a big investment of money. And just that piece of it is what holds back. So, but I'd be interested in other people's.
Right. I'm wondering if maybe in your case, if you could back off from the artwork and simplify it to some degree, maybe just stick with the web of terms or something like that. In the chat, Jade mentioned, right, maybe in a stylized way that matches your channel. Jade mentioned that Dom from Domain of Science is making loads of money from posters. So maybe we need to get a hold of him and ask him how are you making the posters? What service are you using? Mark asks everyone, what merch platforms do people prefer? Does anyone have a really good experience with a merch platform that you would recommend? Silence. Shopify. Jade says Dom says he uses DFTBA. Okay. We use sort of the default Teespring merch shelf on YouTube, and it's miserable. It's just the markup is terrible. So I can't say that I have one that I recommend, but I'd love to hear if anyone else has a recommendation. Willie says he uses CrowdMade. They're much more exclusive than Teespring, but they're really good. CrowdMade knows a lot about YouTube merch, so they're a good company to have. Okay, other than merchandise, does anyone have a recommendation for any of these other options for making money off of YouTube? Have you tried any of these other things? Willie mentions that he did video editing for a while. Anyone else try that? Doing some freelance work of editing, writing, hosting, using your YouTube skills? Jade mentions that she did animating and writing for Braincraft. That's awesome. What about licensing of your footage? I know that some of us have spoken with bow clips as an example. Has anyone had success doing that, using some of your footage and using a service to license it out? Willie mentions he wants to get on licensing the stock footage when traveling. Yeah, the footage you get when traveling is a real bonus. You might be able to monetize that. I have heard from some people who've tried to sell on iStock and Getty Images that they just don't pay very well, but I think, yet again, it's just another possible income stream to look into. Oh, Stephanie mentions that Complexly is seeking a video editor, motion graphics artist for SciShow. Jonathan mentions he has tried using bow clips with some success, and it takes minimal extra work, so that's always good. Does anyone have any last words about making money off of the YouTube platform before we end for today? Bye, Ben. Jade asks, is Kickstarter successful? I could talk about that a little if anyone else has anything else to say, though. We just did a Kickstarter project in November, I think it was, for one particular playlist on our channel. And I would say it's really important to have a very specific project to promote on Kickstarter as opposed to just supporting your channel. That's what people are really looking for on Kickstarter, trying to help you achieve a very specific goal. And so for us, we had one set of videos that we really wanted help to make faster. So we wrote up a very specific budget and let people know where their money was going. We tried to keep it very small. And so I'd be very happy to talk to anyone about what it's like to run a Kickstarter. Jenny, Science Mom, also recently successfully completed a Kickstarter, and she did a write-up on it on the WeCreateEdu Slack, and so she's another really good resource if you'd like to talk about Kickstarter. Okay, anyone else? Anything else you'd like to talk about making money off of YouTube in our last minute here? Okay, everybody, that was our first WeCreateEdu Hangout of the year. Remember, everyone, they're the first Friday of the month, so we'll see you next month. Thanks for coming, everyone. And thank you, Fedor, for being so brave. That was awesome. Well, We'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye, everyone.